Okay, so we're going to delete these cues so that when we come back here, we have a clean QLab file. Oh, I didn't mean to. There we go. Delete all of those. And we're going to go back into the code. So some of the things we want to add, let's take a look at the original version. Oh, has that been open then? That's too bad. Let's take a look at the original version of that new video queue Applescript. And let's close this. We see our enterSomeText is showing up again. We had those pop-ups. And what this does is it asks you for the surface number, and then it asks you for the queue number, and then it sets the color to purple because, as we recognize, this is the QLab 3 version of setting color. And then it does most of the same stuff. It makes a video queue and it sets some properties, and it sets the notes to the surface so that you all can easily check what surface you're using. And it does that queue number business that we saw from the demonstration at the beginning. And it makes a fade, then it makes a group, and it makes a list that has the new video queue and the fade in queue, and it moves those two queues into the group in order. And then it makes the fade out, and then again it moves our playback position to the new video queue because again that's usually the first queue you're going to want to be editing. So we want to add this group functionality in. So let's go ahead and copy this. Let's go ahead and copy this. Don't mind the delays. Sometimes if you notice things are not generating in the correct order, you can add a delay. Uh, I later discovered after using this it was because I was leaving the selected in the wrong space. This queue works best if you have no queue selected and you're just adding to the end of a queue stack. So let's copy this and we'll bring it over to our new slide script. And we're going to want to put this in between the fade in and the fade out. And because we're referencing the fade in queue in this script, we're going to need to know how to do that. We're going to need to know what we're talking about. So right down here at the end of this, I'm going to add a line that says return unique ID of fade queue. Unique ID is a great option for when you need to reference a queue in different parts of the script because it's unique and you can't mess that up. So I'm going to say, and then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to, what do I call this down here? I called it fade in. So what I'm going to do is insert, I'm going to set fade in to my make fades. And that's still going to generate normally. I need to bring this, oops, excuse me, wrong line. Bring this back out. I'm going to add a line just to make it easier to read. You can get rid of these two lines because we're not doing the old version. The old version of setting color, excuse me. So now, since I'm using the QID instead of the queue itself, I just need to change this to QID. So now this will still this will still reference that queue the same way that new queue references the video queue up here. So let's see what all we have here. We don't, yeah, we'll leave that there. Oh, you know what? We need to bring over these two lines, which will prompt the user for the queue number and the surface. Oh, that was not the button I wanted. Let's bring this back over and we'll add these up at the top. And we'll move that back over. So now let's just walk through what we have so far and see what we have and what we're missing. We'll start with asking the queue number for a surface, asking the user for a surface. and then asking for a Q number and storing those in variables. So what we can do here, now that we're going to have a Q number in Surface, is we can add that to our properties. We can add Q number is going to be Q num, and then notes, we're going to say the notes are going to be surface, and you concatenate an Applescript with the ampersand and surf. And I need to go back, oh, wrong key, I need to go back and add a space in here, or else there won't be one. So now that'll automatically add a Q number and the Q notes to our new video queue. Then we're going to make, so let's go down that and let's do this down here as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the Q number. You know what? Yeah, no, let's do that because so our next step was to do the fade in, and since we hadn't updated the new Q number and notes theory for our make fades function, let's go ahead and add those. So the first thing we're going to need to do is we're going to need to pass those into the function so that we can use them. So we'll add surface and Q number, which is Q num, and then we'll scroll down here and then we'll add those same things in here. Now we're not going to add those same variables. What we're going to add is the prototype variable. So we're going to say my surface and my QNum. And then we'll go down here and where it says Q number, we'll change this to, we'll add, sorry, this is where we need to take it out of this section. So we want to delete the rest of this. And we want to come down to fade in, and we're going to add a line that says set Q number of fade Q. So if it's fade in, we want to set the Q number to in with a space. No, not with a space. In, because Q numbers don't have a lot of room. In and my QNum. And then if it's a fade out, we will say set Q number of fade Q to out. And my QNum. And then we can go back, and for both of them we can add the notes regardless of what's going on. It's going to be, so the notes are still going to be the surface. So notes are going to be surface, surface space, and my surface, and then we'll close that list. Okay, so now we're getting pretty good. But again, because, no, we're going to leave that the way it is. We're going to leave this all the way it is. Let me just check my notes right here, because I think we're getting pretty close to test. You know what? I'm feeling correct. Oh, nope, you know what? Since we used the my enterSomeText up here, we're going to need to copy that over as well. So let's go down to the bottom. You know what? Over here, I've got the nicer, cleaner version, so I'm going to grab that for you. I haven't updated that old script, so I like using this one now, because what I've done here is I've added this little warning for myself to not forget the dialog title. That's something I do all the time. So with that in mind, let's go to the top, and we will add a line in here that says global dialog title, and then we'll add a second line that says set dialog title to, and let me just check, we're going to say make new video sequence. Let's save that. So now, oh, we need to, another thing, we need to add this. We need to, where we call the fade out, where we create the fade out queue, we need to add the new arguments as well. We did it up here for fade in. We need to do it down here for the fade out. Sorry, this is QNum. And so the one thing I do want to do different, since we're adding a group here, and we may be adding other things inside this group that play with this projection. So we're also going to, we're going to give a variable to the return of this. So remember, this my make fade will return the unique ID of the new fade queue. So we'll set outCue to that, and that'll return the unique ID of the fade out, and then we will set the queue target of outCue to group queue. So this way, if we add any audio or if we add any other projections to that group, we can make sure that they're all going to go out at the right time. Okay, so let's just take a look over at our group. I realize we blew through this group section and I never actually went through it very well. You know what? In fact, I think we're all caught up to speed. So let's just go over the whole thing. So we'll go back up to the top. We'll go back up to the top. We have a global dialog title, and that dialog title is going to say make new video sequence, and tell application ID QLab to get a surface number and get a queue number. Then we're going to make a video that has opacity of 0. That will be an auto continue into our fade in. We'll have the color purple. It'll have the number queue number that we got up here. It'll have the surface that we got up here. Then we're going to make a fade in that's going to run all through all of our new fade in routine that does the opacity and adds the purple and the queue number and the notes like we expect. And then we're going to add a group, and this group is going to have a queue number that's P in the queue number just to make it stand out. And then once again, we'll do the notes thing just because I'm being thorough. We probably don't need to write the surface in every single queue, but I'm trying to just be super demonstrative here. Um, I don't know why we have this G queue that we can get rid of because we're not using it anywhere else. My queues are these two queues that we're going to move into the group. So this is something we've never seen before. Sometimes when you are moving things, you have to tell the parent of the thing that you are moving. Um, I don't see that often. I think moving is the only time I regularly see talking to the parent of a thing. It's just a weird Applescript permission thing. I really don't understand the rules. I just know that when I get permission errors, I try parent, especially with moving. But so that's what these two lines here. Honestly, I copied these from a Google Group queue. Like I said, I'm not entirely sure what the minutia of why you need to use the unique ID like this and tell parent is. And so then once we move those two queues into the group, we'll make our fade out queue and we'll reassign that fade out queue to the group. And then we'll move the playback position back to that new video queue so that we can go ahead and edit it. So let's go ahead and compile this. It compiles successfully. Let's try and run it. Let's go back to QLab. It's going to ask us which surface. We're going to say surface 1. It's going to ask us which queue. Let's try Q5. And it looks like we might have got an error because we didn't get the playback position reset. So let's come back over here. Yep, we got an error. Can't set class queue. Okay, so I can't tell what that says in this program, so we're gonna have to check in the script editor and get the better error message. Let's paste this in here. We'll compile this. Let's bring QLab up behind us, and we'll delete all of these Qs. Um, So this happens sometimes. I know it makes my videos longer. I know that it's probably not the most interesting thing to watch, but I think it's important for people to see, for new scripters to see that this is part of the process. You know, things don't work the first time. You have to go in and check the error codes. Sometimes you have to go into the Google groups and check things. Before I record, I test things out, and things don't always work. And in that case, I do go to the Google groups or to Google in general, the Facebook group. The only reason I don't do that on video is that I feel like that would be really time consuming, and because running Google Chrome while I'm running all the videoing stuff really slows my computer down. So anyways, we're going to run this from the script editor, get a better output, and see what's going wrong. So let's run this. We're going to say surface 1 again. We're going to say Q5 again. Go back to the script editor. We get an error. New slide. Can't set class. Oh, you know what? It's because I need to do QID. Yep. So there we go. Let's run this. Let's delete all of these. We'll run it from the script editor. This time we'll say surface 2 and we'll say Q10. And there we go. And we see our Q is numbered Q10. It has 0 opacity. Our group is group P10. Our fade in has 100% opacity. It's N10. Our fade out has 0% and it is out 10. So that's successful. One last thing, like we always like to do, we're going to take this from the script editor. We're going to copy it and we'll bring it into QLab and make a new Q. Let's delete all of these fades. Make a new Q called newer make video, and we will give this a script source of all that's, oh, sorry, didn't mean to pull up Spotlight Search. Give that a script source of all that. Compile it, we'll give it a hotkey we're going to give it a hotkey of Control Z. So we'll click out and we'll just run Control Z. We get a pop-up, we'll say Surface 3, we'll say Q15, and there we go. So folks, I think that'll wrap it up for us. This one is really long. It's very thorough. This is 2 scripts wrapped in one. That's updated 2 scripts. So that's really 4 scripts we're examining in one video. Thanks for sticking in with me. If you did make it all the way through the end, then you experienced a lot of new code. We already did the big walkthrough before we ran it, so I'm not going to go over it again. But yeah, this is a really, what I recommend to you is that you look for situations like this where you can write a script like this that will augment your workflow. So instead of adding a new video, a new fade in, and a new fade out each time, you can just hit that hotkey, have the 3 cues generated and linked right automatically, and all you have to do is change your name and change your target of the actual video, and then maybe play with a couple levels. A good next step for this would be to take the make new video cue, and the way it has the opacity functionality, add some audio functionality to it so that the fade in will set your new video cue to have your audio zeroed out and fade that up to 100%. That's a different use case. It wasn't my use case when I was building the script, which is why I didn't add it, but that's something you might like. And there's any number of other circumstances that you might find where a script like that is useful. So again, I recommend looking at what you're doing and seeing where you can make shortcuts like this for yourself. Templating out your show files can really reduce your repeated actions. Okay, this is really long. I'm going to stop here. Thank you for tuning in. I'll see you next time. Have a good night. morning, day, whatever, whichever. So long.